drive you.
Hi everybody, I'm Derek Pernesiglio and welcome to the Derek Pernesiglio Show. We've got two great guests that are joining us in the studio. We've got Chris Williams from the Smart Modified Tour and also JB Cole, who is the flagman from the Smart Modified Tour and also moonlights, believe it or not, as a professional wrestler. Guys, thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So, Chris, your history runs very rich with modified racing and racing all around in general. We chatted a little bit earlier. Where did it all start for you?
God, as a young kid living on a racetrack road at Martinsville Speedway, my dad worked there at the Speedway, general manager, pretty much done everything from licensing to food to everything, maintenance at the racetrack. And, you know, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, you know, watching the Cardinal 500 and Dominion 500 and just loving modifieds. And, you know, just basically it kind of carried into at high school, just meeting Earnhardt on a weird chance from a standpoint. I was playing basketball. My appendix ruptured one night. Back then, I had never missed a day of school. And I went to school and they said you had to miss 3 days of school. So they wouldn't let me come back to school on a Monday. Just so happened Earnhardt was testing at Martinsville, and pretty much the rest is history because me and Dale kind of hit it off right off the bat and went to work for Dale 87, first 88.
So hold on, back up a little bit. So you had an appendix
Ruptured
operation.
Yep.
So what was it? You went to work with your dad that day?
Well, I went to school. And the principal said that, you know, the note, I had the surgery on Saturday. You had to have 3 complete days back in the day of healing. And I was fine. I went to school and they wouldn't let me come to school. So I went back to the house. And of course, Dad come up and he's like, "What are you doing back?" And I'm like, "They wouldn't let me go to school," which he wasn't too happy. And he said, "Well, some rookie down here, Dale Earnhardt, is practicing. Come on down here with me." So I did. Took the chance to go hang out.
Rookie.
Yeah.
Dale Earnhardt. Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Which car was he testing? Osterland's car?
He was in the 2 at the time. And you know, at a later date, he was in the 3 testing that I have some video of, which is really cool. I tell this story quite a bit. So during the test in the 3, him and Childress was down there. I had my mama's Beta camera, and back then they were huge, right? And so I was on the flag stand, I was on pit wall, and I went down to turn 1, and Dale comes through, and I was probably about 2 foot off the turn at Martinsville. I mean, he's, you know, going into the turn, he's probably running 90-some mile an hour, maybe 100. So I come back in, he pulls in. He hadn't said a word to me. I've been down there for like an hour and a half everywhere filming, and I have it all on camera, which is all on tape. So he gets out, and he's like, what are you doing? And, you know, this is after he had won Rookie of the Year in the championship. And I said, "Hey, I was just down there, you know, getting some close-up shots." I said, "You the champ. I won't worry about you wrecking." Well, he got that shit-eating grin, and the rest is history, you know. So, you know, it was fun to be down there, and it was fun to interact with them and Chocolate and Richard, and got to know them pretty well. And it was pretty cool because, you know, a few years later, I got the opportunity to go work. So that's kind of how it all got started. And that's a quick synopsis of what was transpiring, but it was fun.
That's cool. And now years later, you know, you worked through many different companies. Now the two of you work together on the Smart Modified Tour. You moonlight JB as a professional wrestler, as JB Cole. We've seen you on AEW, on TNT. What are some of the other ones? AML, and also you are the flagman at Bowman Gray, or the assistant flagman.
Bowman Gray.
The youngest ever assistant flagman, right? Okay. How did the two of you guys meet and come together and start doing this with the Smart Modified Tour?
You want to answer that? You want me to answer that?
I'm trying to figure out who paid me. I can't.
I wanted to get that out first. No, Mike Norman hit me up one time, and we were, you know, everybody was going through the pandemic at the moment, and I had walked away from racing for a little bit on the modified scene, just kind of getting my breath from doing some stuff with Ace Speedway and modifieds, and I was enjoying just helping out a few friends with their cars and stuff, just kind of not walking away totally, just kind of keep my, you know, eyes on everything, on how everything was changing and stuff. And Mike saw me at Caraway and said, "Hey, come here. I got somebody that you really need to latch on and work together."
Mike's a super nice guy.
Oh,
too,
absolutely, absolutely. And I said, "What are you implying me to do?" He's like, "Well, get back into modified racing and promoting and putting together races." I'm like, "Oh gosh, I got heartburn as soon as he said that." And I'm like, "I've enjoyed this time, man. I don't know." And you know, same story we've seen years past. People try, no disrespect to anybody, but people's tried, and it lasts, it'll fizzle, and then it go away.
Right.
I don't want to be a part of that again. So I pondered, and I ended up calling him, left him a voicemail, and I just forgot about it. And next thing I know, one evening he called, Chris did, and we talked for a good 2 hours or so, just to get to know each other. And I was sold. I mean, I'll say I was probably about 50-50 sold. I was totally sold when me and him made a trip to Darlington for the Cup event. And how many people, as soon as we got out of the Tahoe, Mike Helton and Jim France make their way to him to be sure that they spoke to him.
Right.
And I'm going, okay, this guy's legit. You know, you have that little bit of, is this really? Okay, yeah, it is. I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
So then on, people that we ran into at Darlington just kept on, that you need to stay latched to this guy. He's going to take you places. So then I took that and I watched how we were doing things with Smart, and I'm like, you know, this is legit. This is a real thing. We did a few expedition races there at first at Florence and stuff, and just the atmosphere was different. It was we were back. I felt like, you know, we're back. You know, as a tour, I was with the NASCAR Southern Modified series, and it was fun, but it was not laid back. It was, you know, it was very,
I get it,
stern.
Right.
You know,
it's very business oriented. It's very structured.
You had to watch your every step you made and everything. And, you know, this here, it's like the group is just laid back, fun, competitive as ever. And as we went along with those expedition races, the car count kept coming, and then the word kept going around about us too, that, you know, how we were doing things and stuff. And it's just, you know, it was all about that one thing that he's pounding in my head: credibility. Do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
And that's what we have done ever since day one, and it's snowballed into what we have today.
Yeah, it's I'll just interject a little bit. You know, a few people had told me about JB and some other people that was in the sport that could help elevate the series back. And so I just kind of wanted to talk to those individuals. And what I found out is no different than the passion that the car owners and the drivers and the tracks have, but I found good people that are passionate about what they do and they really love the sport. And when you can bring all those people together, you know, as officials, and just kind of look at it a different light, you know, a lot of times you get the glass half empty, and everybody wants to be the naysayer. They want to tear you down, or even everybody that's in it. And if you kind of teach them that, you know, everybody needs to work in the same direction, add credibility, and you know, the glass half full, how can we improve it? And I had to teach that or instill that into some of them. But the officials that we have, including JB, they're very passionate about the sport. They wouldn't be doing it. They're not doing it for the money. Let's be honest. There's the drivers aren't, and the teams aren't.
Well, if I could just interject here too, the one thing that I'm also gathering from this is you've made a big enough business for yourself in the racing business. You didn't have to do this. No. Like, this isn't like something you could sit back on the lake and hang out on a boat on the weekends and be relaxed. But I guess the big question is, why did you do it?
Well, to be honest with you, you know, the pandemic kind of hit, and the Fanatics vice president deal was kind of over, and, you know, wasn't traveling. We weren't doing shows, you know, like the Kentucky Derby and some of the other stuff, because they weren't having fans. And, you know, my background's always been in licensing. So I kind of semi-retired, and I had actually the year before had started running at the stadium a little bit, and Tom Buzzy
And you race. That's the other thing too. Trying to get across to the people that are listening and watching is that you also have done all this and you drive a race car too.
I hold a steering wheel. Those guys out there are good. You know what I'm saying? And Earnhardt said it best. There's a lot of people that's running 10th, 11th, or 12th probably got a lot more experience than some of the Cup drivers do at a certain time, or at least have better opportunity to win. But I've always wanted to race, or I wanted to be a part of it. One, it just, you can relate to, how many hours these guys are putting in a shop and, what's going on. And so I really wanted to get to know the aspects of how the tracks operate, how the officials work, what the team has to do. And like I just said, a lot of people aren't doing this for money. They're not making any. Mm-hmm. And so to Tom Buzzy gives me a call, and Burt Myers and a few others, and just basically said, hey, with your background and your experience, why don't you just come and give us a try? And so they set up a meeting at Puddin' Swishers, and a lot of the teams and owners and drivers and stuff, and they just started hashing out, can we do this again? Is it the right thing? Kind of everybody's gave up on the South.
Right, because after the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour went away, it kind of left everybody without a home.
Yeah.
A few small series came along here and there. I remember some races, but it fizzled.
So what they needed was a platform. That's all they really needed, and some guidance. And Tom got up and said some things and said, had somebody like to introduce it would be willing to give it a shot. And so I stood up and listened to everybody. And it's like I've told everybody, I love racing, period. That's, I've done it all my life. I've represented the best of the best. I've been in negotiations with Fortune 500 companies. I've, handled millions and millions of dollars. And, and the one thing I'll never forget, Bill France says, if it says it's $1 million there, it'll be $1.1 million there when you get there, which, from the credibility side, that's all you ever want. And so I said, let's try it. Let's just see. And so then I had to, talk to the tracks. The first naysayers was, you're never going to get a track. You're not going to get a full car count. People are not going to support you. This was coming from the drivers. Right. Everybody's like, you're just not going to do it.
Believe me, I can sympathize, because I started working for a track in the PR and promotional areas of it. And when you're on that other side of the fence, you are trying to appeal to a customer base that is hard to satisfy.
Yeah.
They are, and that's being nice. It's hard to do.
It's very hard to do, and and they're a competitor by trait. Mm-hmm. So they're not only competitive, but at the same time, they're in the sport for a reason. Generally, it's because they've been introduced to it by a family member or a hero or a neighbor or somebody there, and they're passionate about it, even though they're never going to make money at it, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I listened to all of it, and, I just picked up the phone because the first thing that was told to me was, you're never going to get tracks. And so I called Nick at South Boston, who had a relationship at Pocono, Louie and the family up there, and Doc back in the day. Been chewed out by him a few times by leaving trash out on the. I almost got evicted, as a matter of fact, from that racetrack one time, but not by intent, what I'm saying, just not paying attention because I was too young to think through the situation. But anyway, and that's being light. Louie's laughing right now. But Nick said, no problem, let's do it. And so then I picked up another one, said the same thing. Rusty Wallace started leasing the track at Motor Mile. And I said, I want to run there. And he said, sure, call Mark Ebert. Got it. Like everybody I called welcomed it. And I was like, well, darn, thought I wasn't getting none. So then I would sit down and talk to these track owners, Darren Hackett and some of the other ones, and Langley up at Franklin County, and just started listening to what really made them tick and what they were trying to get accomplished, and which is the same goals we all are, just try not to lose X amount of dollars. And
right, because people think that tracks just generate money. They just print money all the time.
Yeah. It's not everybody's Bo McGray, right? So it's a different world, and they've got the same common goals that you're doing and trying to work in the same direction, and they're doing the same thing as adding credibility, that they're going to pay out and do the things that they're going to do, and you're going to show up with a certain car count. And so basically I had to learn what was going on with the tracks and put it in a business plan, because JB will tell you everything I do has a number to it, right? It has a breakdown, what's it going to cost? How's the break even? How many cars is X? How many tires you're going to need?
Right.
Is it costing $3,000 to show up to race for $2,500? You gotta understand all that. And so
the television world is very similar with budgets and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how you have to do it. It's business, right? And so one thing led to another, and thank God for Florence Speedway. They like, I'm a modified guy. He invited us down, and we put on a great show, had a good car count. Then Darren, who was in most of our meetings and, is well adapted to what the modified world is down south. And, Darren basically opened up, not only his mind, his playbook, but, he became a true partner. It's like, come run with us and let's do things this way. And talked to him on the way down here this morning, and just because they're all your partners, you're not rubbing against them, you're working with them in the same direction. And so
Caraway has always been modified friendly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For whatever series was there,
absolutely.
The original Smart Series, the Southern Modified Tour, any they were always been mod friendly racetrack.
Yeah,
very much so.
And so once we hurled the track ownership, the dates, once we hurled what we were going to do, then it was all about credibility of making sure we said what we were going to do, we were going to do it. And, the personalities in the sport, it doesn't matter if it's, Bird, or it doesn't matter if it's Brandon Ward, it doesn't matter if it's, whomever, you talk to them. And that's the one thing that I've done from day one is I talk to each and every one of them, and after the race, even though I'm directing a race, is I want to go down inside and I want to hear it firsthand, raw. I don't want to hear it from 10 other people that such and such is mad at you, because we're all human. We're all, we can make mistakes like anybody can, but at least if you're sitting there telling them why you made the decision and what was going on, it comes from you and not from somebody else. And
yeah, that's the other thing we're trying to explain to the listeners too, is you're also the race director too. So you're making the calls up in the tower as well. Yeah. So I just so many hats you're wearing.
Yeah. Well, look, you got to do it all. You have to do every piece of it. You can't manage somebody if you don't know how to do the job, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to put yourself in it. And sometimes it's, trial by fire. You don't know until after you see it happen. And you're like, we've got to improve on that. And, we're not, look, I've not ran a racetrack. I've not promoted, X. Yes, I've done business with X, but there's certain things I'm not doing, and I'm working to it. And, thank God that these folks that I'm working with, and they tell me right off if I'm doing something wrong. They've got a lot more experience. You can always tell when something's going wrong in the booth, because JB's looking up at the sky, just shaking his head, and it's comical. It really is comical. There's twice the last 2 years I said, JB, I know, just pay attention. Like, I know I messed up, or I know something messed up on the racetrack.
Well, I will say this, and you know this, Derek. I have been under many directors in my career of being an official flagman. Mm-hmm. He hadn't done this before, and then I get in the flag stand one of the first race or two, and I'm thinking, is that Mark Sudworth in my ear right now? The other director that brought me into the series.
Right.
Smooth, collected and everything. There's been a couple of hairy moments that we've had, but like he said, we're human, we're not perfect, but I'm serious. It's like he's been doing it for 10 years. It's smooth. He's orchestrating madness out there on the track just perfectly. It's amazing at times.
But I'm sure that has come also from years of listening in on the radio, the race directors, things like that. Their delivery, staying calm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
you got any funny stories of the two of you? Like,
South Boston. Look, we're a small group of people. We got passionate people that work with us and everything, but we work hard throughout the whole week. We do everything.
Marketing. Mm-hmm. We hang in the signs.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything.
So when I get there and I get in the stand, that's my time to relax finally.
Oh, okay.
Seriously.
Right.
When he gets in the director's box, that's his time to finally settle down and relax.
Okay.
Well, I relaxed a little bit too much at South Boston. And I'll let you go ahead.
No, I was just sitting there watching the race, and laps are counting down, and all of a sudden I just look down, and JB's like looking off into space, and I'm like, hey JB, you awake?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
5
fine.
to go. What was it, like 5? Something like
like
that.
10 laps.
It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. Yeah, it was probably about 20 to go or something. And Priest is done set on cruise control, and I'm like, this is nice. Yeah. This is very nice. The racing was great. I'm not down in our racing. Our racing's been superb. Best thing going, but I was tired. I probably wrestled the night before, and I'm there at South Boston busting butt, and he came over to the flagman. Yeah, just checking.
Now that's the other thing. The wrestling. How did you get into becoming or getting onto the path of becoming a professional wrestler?
It just came up. A very dear friend of mine, a thorn in my side, the brother I never wanted, Brian Hawks. He was involved in what's called WrestleCade, that is pretty big in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It brings in all the promotions around the world together.
Is that the first spot that ever chewed me out?
That was the first spot that chewed you out.
Come into the booth.
Came into the booth, yeah.
Just checking. Keep going.
And then you hired him to be the pace car driver.
How dumb was I?
Yeah, well, he did good.
No,
he did good. But
share that story for later.
we'll go back to that.
Okay.
That's gonna be a fun one. But he's a brilliant mind when it comes to professional wrestling. Him and Tracy Myers, they put together what's called WrestleCade, which is the WrestleMania of indie promotions in North Carolina. AML, America's Most Liked Wrestling, branched off of that. Well, he kept on and said, you need to come to one of the shows. You need to come to one of the shows. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I was like, all right, I'll show up.
As a kid, right?
Yeah. Watching it with my grandfather.
And this was, one of the huge, rich areas for it. Was was in the South.
Yeah,
the
Mid-Atlantic and all that. Yeah, absolutely. NWA. And I went to one of the shows, and it was Carlito versus Matt Hardy in a ladder match, and he sits me ringside, and he actually took me backstage, introduced me to everybody, and I'm just taking it all in. Like, I really want to maybe do something like this.
I could do this. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
So he goes, I need a referee for AML when it branched off from WrestleCade. I was like, I'm your guy. He's like, you're an official in racing, you're going to be an official for wrestling. I never really thought about wrestling, me actually doing it.
Right.
But I got a little bit of training because I was told at AIWF in Mount Airy, where me and Brian cut our teeth in wrestling, they said to really understand it, you got to be a referee. You got the best seat in the house, kind of like a flagman's got the best seat in the house at a racetrack. So I was a referee.
That's understandable. I get it. You're standing right there
I'm
over
right
top
there.
of them.
I'm seeing how it works. And sure enough, about 3 years of refereeing, and then next thing I know, AML presents a school of training in George South, which is a big name in wrestling. NWA champ, NWA legend and WCW wrestler, wrestled for WWF. Ric Flair's favorite wrestler. He wrestled him over 200 times.
George South. I think I remember that name from the documentary they did on him.
Yep, NWA and everything.
Flair's a character. Oh, my God.
Absolutely. Me, George, and Brian went to Orlando for WrestleMania 33 and hung out with Flair. Whew. But anyway,
What's your record?
What's my record?
Yeah, what's your record?
The record doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
It's telling the story.
Oh, okay.
I could lose a million times. Winning and losing pays the same.
How many belts you get?
So anyway,
He loves to bust your chops about this.
every day at race day. This is it right here. So, but long story short, George South, I was training under him. I wanted to get know what it's like and everything. That way I can respect it more and everything. Got in there with George South. George South said, "You can do this." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Go ahead, get in the ring." And it was one of his little shows he had at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and I was hooked. After that deal, I had my racing there. I had my wrestling. I'm like, "This is awesome," and the rest is history.
How's your body feel?
Oh well, it hurts.
I was just gonna say. I mean, obviously, it is entertainment. And obviously, you're not getting punched in the face like in UFC or anything like that. But you guys really
sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes there's probably a punch that's not pulled or something. But you guys really are beating the hell out of your bodies. I mean, I watch these documentaries of these other guys. I mean, they're beating up their knees, their heads.
You got to stay in shape. You got to stay in the gym. You got to, the training is more important. But I've had it. My C6 in my neck. I've had an injury, to that disc. That was rough.
Well, Flair just posted he's still doing it, right?
Yeah.
Last week or 2 weeks ago.
70-some years old.
Wait,
still
Flair
getting-
wrestled again?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Get out of here.
He trained with Jay Lethal.
Yeah, I seen it.
Yeah. At a warehouse. Just wanted to get in there and
He looked pretty good.
He did.
I mean, he looked better than you at 70.
Was this on TV or was it like?
No, this was
It's
private.
just for
It was
fun.
private. Yeah, somebody
No
videoed
kidding.
it though. Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah.
You know, it was so funny. We were at my friend's bachelor party one time, and you know, he's always seen around Charlotte,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and he come out to say hello to us or wish us well, I guess, because my friend was at his bachelor party, and we were standing there taking a group photo. He's like, "I've had 4 wives. I don't want a 5th."
And he did.
And he did.
And he left that one.
Oh God.
But no, it's been amazing being on that side.
So now, well, first off, what's your take on the wrestling thing? Because obviously you had Jeff Hammond appear with some of your races, and he has a wrestling tie-in. And like, how do you guys make that all work? The racing and the wrestling, which is
Well, that was all JB and Jeff. You know, I look.
There's a connection there.
There's a huge connection. The fan base is pretty similar, right? And you know, those guys have a lot of talent. You know, entertainment's an understatement of what they perform and what they do. I tell JB all the time, though. I said, "You're going to wear your body down. You're going to kill your body." Just because if you go watch an actual wrestling match and just see what they go through, I mean, your body takes a beating. So, you know, from the professional side and the entertainment side, I mean, I respect them tremendously. I have my own opinions about some of the other stuff.
Tough love.
Is there
It's tough
anything
love.
that you like watch from the wrestling that you can maybe use at the racetrack?
Absolutely not.
Or absolutely not. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Have you've gone to some of his matches? Have you done that?
I've not went to one of. Well, yeah, I did.
Yeah, we did the
went.
show.
Yeah, I did the show. I went to him and Hammond and.
We did AML did
yeah. It was really good.
Smart Modified
Yeah, it was
show.
really
We had
good.
Smart Modifieds and Smart Stars show up
Really?
with their cars,
Yeah.
out front, and then
at the racetrack,
at the AML event.
At the
What did
AML
you,
event. No kidding.
Yeah.
What was
yeah.
the prop you used on? What's his name?
So what I had was a Madhouse match. So since I come from the
Oh,
Madhouse,
man.
anything goes. So I had race car doors, I had lug nuts, I even had an air wrench, actual air wrench. Michael Smith, Andretti in All World.
An air rent. Where'd you have the compressor?
Hang on, I'm getting there. Michael.
You got to fire it up.
Hang on.
Or did
Hang
you have
on.
a bottle? Was it a
We
bottle?
had a bottle.
Oh God.
Me and Michael said I could bring a air tank if you want me to. I said absolutely. We'll put it underneath the ring. He hooked the hose up. I tested out.
Yeah. Where did you?
We're gonna explain that?
Yeah. Could you go ahead and explain that?
Oh Lord, I think we got video of that. But
Oh God.
so I get out of the ring.
What'd you do with this air wrench?
Well, he was bent over. Zuka,
God.
Zuka King was bent over. I had kicked him in the
This is going
face.
really weird.
It's bad.
I took advantage of Zuka. I'm sorry, with the air wrench, the actual air wrench.
How far did the guy jump?
Oh, he jumped pretty high.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
So lug nuts.
We had a chrome horn. We had
chrome
an
horn?
actual chrome horn, a bumper, front Nerf bar of a modified that was involved in the match. Yeah, my face met the bumper on the mat.
for real.
For real.
Well, of course.
But did you have a good knot in your head afterwards?
Yeah,
Or-
it
He had a
was the
lug nut
next day.
print on his back for a while.
Yeah, I got slammed on the lug nuts. That wasn't fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, we had a bag, a Crown Royal bag. Everybody thought it was tax or whatever, and it was lug nuts. And
Really?
got slammed on them.
Oh, ouch! That hurt.
The things I do for the business.
Yeah.
Both racing and wrestling.
Well, I'm sure there's some nights where you leave the ring going,
What am I doing?
what am I doing?
I ask myself that every day.
Right.
What am I doing?
So,
But seeing those kids and everybody, that's what fuels me doing that. Just seeing the kids eat it up and stuff. I actually had a kid, his parents messaged me a picture. He was wearing a JB Cole shirt, one of my shirts, to take treatment.
You gave it
for-
away, right?
Yeah, I gave it to them.
Okay.
They didn't buy it.
That's cool. Yeah, because your character is you're a racing flagman.
Yeah.
So you've come out, dressed as Cole Trickle from
had-
Days of Thunder.
yeah.
You've come out dressed like Dale Earnhardt.
Dale Earnhardt scheme, the tights. I even had smart modified.
Trademark violation.
Stop it.
Call him George Tobey.
Don't do that. I even had smart logo on my tights and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
The things I did for you. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Wore smart on my ass. Yeah. I was a smart ass. Yeah.
Yeah. My point exactly.
So, all right, let's back up a little bit. So, Chris, your history. You said you had worked with. Obviously, you've worked with all of the the big names over the years. How did you get hooked up working for Dale Earnhardt? Obviously, you met him when you were a little kid.
Yeah,
and then you end up going to work for him. How did that happen?
Well, back in the day, there was no souvenir trailers on track property. My mom and dad, lived first. They owned the first 3 buildings on the racetrack road, and so the speedway at Martinsville allowed them to be on track, but away from the track. So the piece of property, which now is where the road forks, right there where the road forks, it used to be just a solid field, and they parked the souvenir trailers over there. And Hank Jones owned Sports Image at the time, and they got stuck, and so I just went and got a tractor from my granddad and just pulled them out. And I'd already met Dale, I already knew Dale, but Hank had never met me. And so Hank said, "Hey man, I want you to come to work for me. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Man, I'm working 3 jobs. I'm working, as a lag operator at DuPont. I'm doing surveying on the side, trying to go to school."
How old were you at the time?
19, 20.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I'm working at Bassett Walker, and I'm like, I don't know. And he said, just let's go to, Dale's running a special race at South Boston. Let's go down there and take a look and see if you want to do it. So Venus, my ex-wife, we were together, and we went down there, and Dale was out there, and Hank was like, don't go up to him, he's, don't approach him unless he approaches you or whatever. And I never told Hank that I knew him. And so Dale was practicing, comes in, and there you just kind of pull into the dirt right behind your hauler. And so I was standing beside the hauler, and Dale gets out and he said, "Hey Chris." Hank had that look of like, oh God, you know what I'm saying? So we sat there and talked, and he said, "You want to come to work?" I said, "I'm thinking about it." And so we talked, and there's a lot of great stories to that night with Hank driving. I won't get into that. Coming back, it was awesome. But just a bond, with the team. I'd met Rick Boss, who'd been a long-time employee of Dale's, and, of course, Dale and Tony Urey Sr., and just kind of bonded that night. And
now, but technically you weren't working for RCR. It was
right.
for Motorsports Image.
It's Sports Image.
Sports Image.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Sports Image. And so we went to work right after that. I did. Venus kind of worked out her stuff at Bassett Walker so she can get, a certain amount of years in. And we went to work for Dale, and the great thing is Hal Houston was the one that was training me. That was Dale's father-in-law, which is, Teresa's dad. And him and Betty was kind of with me the first couple of trips to make sure I was going to make it. And thank God, they were great people. Got to know a lot about what was going on there and the history, got to learn a little bit more about Tommy and some other stuff in the family. And basically Hal just gave me the footprint of how to navigate it, to be honest with you, not only with relationships, but the family and everybody else, which was really cool. And so, the rest is kind of history. I've done everything in the souvenir world. I volunteered. If Dale was running a special event at Indianapolis or wherever, I'd always volunteer to go, just because I wanted to be around Dale. A lot of people say, "You done it for the money." I never done it for the money. I done it because I wanted to be around Senior and Earnhardt himself. And the great thing is I forged a huge bond with him, which was, more than I could have ever asked. And the rest is kind of history from that standpoint of, how I kind of went to work with Sports Image and got started. But they were great years, and they were fun. And, then kind of Dale got hurt in Talladega, one of the big wrecks. And he called me one night. He called me a lot around 8:30, 9 o'clock, because he'd always go to bed before 9:30 most of the time. But he was up at 3:30, 4 o'clock signing autographs and doing whatever. But he called me and he's like, I got all my eggs in one basket. I got to do something different, because if I would got hurt, ain't no telling what was going to happen. And I'm like, do what you got to do, bud. And so he had worked out an agreement for Action Performance, which Fred Wagenall had started to die cast, and they bought Dale's rights out, and I moved and went to be vice president of Motorsports Authentics. Action Performance, and then we went through those years of just heyday in NASCAR. In the late '90s, early '90s, late '90s, and of course the tragic day that happened in '01. Everybody didn't really know how we were going to proceed, and to be perfectly honest with you, I think a lot of things started changing then. Some for the bad, some for the good, because they NASCAR lost their crown prince,
right.
because he was much more than a race car driver.
He was the figure.
Oh, he had eighth grade education, one of the smartest people. He could read people like I've never seen. He could tell you what they wanted before they ever got up to the individual to him. It was crazy, 6 cents. But at the same time, it was fun. And then Motorsports Authentics, which was ISC conglomerate, bought out Fred in '05, and I moved to be vice president of that. So it kind of changed hands for 2 or 3 times.
The funny part is in the middle of this, you are getting a firsthand education. Like you can't buy this type of education that you're getting either.
No, because what was happening, the NASCAR was transcending everything. It was surpassing all sports. It was not only from the TV deals, but going to different regions in the United States. And it was just becoming the sport. You look at the grandstands, it was the most attended sporting venues. It was unbelievable. The sales, the licensing, all the Fortune 500 companies that was in it.
Right, because they started trends that you didn't see in other sports, like the billboards behind the batters boxes, the placement, the product placement, and the signage placements.
Yeah, I think NASCAR, and I'll bring up one incident. We were having a big powwow once Motorsports Authentics got bought out, and everybody was talking about how we proceed forward. We had all the people at the round table. Everybody. Track owners, SMI. We had NASCAR with Lisa Kenya France. Everybody was there. I had, because of our business and what our licensing world was tearing everybody up. NBA, NFL, everybody. And NFL was king back then for TV, but from a licensing standpoint, NASCAR was surpassed everybody. And I got commissioned, to help out MLB. And I went and met with them and it was basically just to kind of overview and see, how they did things compared to what we did. And I went to the Yankees and the Arizona Diamondbacks World Series game. And I just took down some notes, and I sit down and talk to their higher ups and stuff, and just started talking about how to make it better. And I said, well, you're missing opportunity, because in NASCAR we have 5 hours before race time.
Right.
Fans get 2 hours before race time. Before game time. And I said, you don't open your gates early enough. You don't have enough interaction. You don't have enough branding. You don't promotion. People can't tell their story. And so Major League Baseball kind of changed because, they didn't have enough lines, registers for the sales. Mm-hmm. So people having to wait, and they weren't standing in line waiting. So live authorization, credit card authorization, all that stuff changed, because of what I seen. And so when we were sitting there in that meeting, which was pretty cool, I won't say who said it, but they were like, we need to be more like MLB and NFL and whatever. And I kind of raised my hand. It was like 30 people at the table, and I kind of raised my hand. I said, I think y'all looking at it wrong. I said, everything that I know, and I do all the major events, from Super Bowls to everything else.
Right, so you had gone and done the stick and ball sports, and then came back to NASCAR.
Yeah. Well, not really left. I just went and advised on those things. Okay. And I was an astute of watching what was going on. Mm-hmm. How people interacted and sales and the sell through and everything else. And what was really cool is when you talk to the higher ups at everywhere else, they all wanted to be like NASCAR. And so my suggestion was keep doing what you're doing, let's not change this thing up. Let's just make it better. And how do we enhance what we already have?
In other words, they need to be more like us instead of us like them.
Yeah, because we were already blazing the trail. We were already doing things that nobody else was doing.
It's a marvelous opportunity too to be able to go to each different one of those major league sports and see how they operate, and then come back, to your sport.
It's smart.
Yeah.
It's
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But see, that's where that comes, that knowledge that he's giving you and everything. That's where it comes in these tracks. When he came on the scene with Smart Modified, these tracks wasn't, they weren't ready for somebody like him, or they weren't prepared. They didn't, from years past, nobody had the knowledge and the education of what he's talking about, making the track money. How can we, all boats will rise?
Well, that's the whole thing too. A lot of short tracks around the country are, for all intents and purposes, mom and pops type of businesses, and you need more of the, as they say, activation at the track to keep those people coming in. I mean, that's the days of just opening the gates and people walking in the door is gone.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you guys do for getting people to your Smart Modified races?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that I think that we do extremely well is, we promote our series. We do video, we do commercials, which has been pretty cool. We highlight what's supposed to be highlighted, and which is the event, but it's our personalities, it's our drivers, it's our tracks that we race on.
And you guys get marquee names, for the people who have not seen a race. You get guys like Bobby Labonte, Hermie Sadler. I mean, like, you're getting cup level talent that is checking out this series and getting involved, which is amazing. Like, how? First off, Bobby Labonte, a cup champion. How do you get him in a modified?
Well, that's kind of unique. When I was racing or trying to race,
I showed you the blue flag a lot. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'd like to tell you what you could do with that blue flag.
I think you did a couple times when you drove by me. I put the cone out.
I never.
You told me I was number one.
I never.
That's common at the stadium.
Gigged you, but that's okay. Anyway,
you swerved at me.
I did swerve at you. No,
he's hard on my wrestling. I'm hard on his racing.
Okay.
So
the interaction between you two is funny as hell.
Yeah. So I was over at Bowman Gray testing, trying to not be 2 seconds off from everybody else, because like I said, I overthink everything. So if you're a second off at Bowman Gray, every 13 laps you're going to get lapped, right? And so you don't want to be lapped every 13 laps, right? And so I said, hey, Bobby, we're really good friends. Our life is kind of gone in the same path. So I was driving the Myers car, the backup car, and I was needing some help, and I didn't want to mess with Bert and Jason or whatever, even though they're there to help. I just wanted somebody that could give me just, you're stupid, or you're not doing this right, or what I'm saying, just not sugarcoating it. So
I'm gonna stay quiet.
Yeah, well, like, you can give me advice. So anyway, so I said, Bobby, what are you doing Saturday? They're having a test session at Bowman Gray, and I'm going to run some laps, and just want you to come and observe. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And if you ever talk to Bobby, everything is meticulous, right? It's like, okay. He's thinking, right? And I said, hey, bring your uniform and hats, helping me out. I may give you a few laps. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. So he comes over.
He just came over just to watch, right?
Yep. That's all he came for.
Just to check it out.
Yeah. And so we run some laps. He's like, well, I don't know, Chris. I've not really run the track. I can't give you, much advice. This is what I think I see, and so on. And so finally I was like, hey, get in. All right. I mean, got his uniform on, strapped him in. Seat's way too big for him. Long story short, we had to put padding around him for quite a while to get him at least comfortable. And he run out and run some laps, and he says, you know what? He said, this is the most freaking fun I think I've ever had. And that was at a 15, 20 lap test session.
Really?
A quarter mile.
Yeah.
That's
and
cool.
So, he talked to Bert and them, and they put him in a car. And to be honest with you, the rest is kind of history. I mean, not at how he got hooked up with the
right. He took a
25
ride
time.
and he was hooked.
Yeah, he took a ride and he was hooked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do with these other superstars that we got out there too.
Well, we've had Mike Bliss on the show, and he even said that he saw Bobby running one night, and he said it looked like fun, and he would just like to try it.
We have a car for him.
Yeah.
Well, we do actually. I mean, we have a couple of cars. I mean, not only Hermie and the Senator has put some people in. I know Newman's raced a few, or raced a race and maybe racing some. in the future. But we also have Craig Young that we have a car, and there's been a couple of others that's called and said they could put somebody in it. So we have opportunities for individuals that want to give it a shot.
That's the other thing too. You've had Ryan Newman race with you too. Priest, right?
Priest won.
Priest has won with you guys too. So you guys are bringing star power, to these modified races. It's got to feel good for you guys to be able to get that going again, because for all intents and purposes, the southeast portion of the United States is late model country, and you guys are doing what you don't normally see in the southeast with open wheel modified racing. Yeah,
it's been really fun. I went to the Spring Sizzler a couple weeks ago and got to see a lot of people up there, and they gave a lot of good reviews on what they're hearing back, because the internal conversation is a whole lot different than what's going on, not only in media, whatever. And it was a very good conversation. And a lot of people is like, how far does your history go back? And so my history goes back modifieds, from my house, Flute Hudson and Clarence Pickerel and Clyde Barber and Mason and Johnny Bryant and all them was within an 8-mile radius of where I lived. So I kind of grew up, in the modified world. And so, when they had the old Sunoco gas station down there, when Richie was trying to beat Jerry, a lot of people don't know that, Clarence and them helped them build that car more simpler so he can get out, if something happened or whatever. They helped Richie kind of create that. And so, Satch and a few others would go up there and run and be competitive up north. But, looking back, in the South, the modifieds was really the thing that was going on. It's just the North took it to a different level. They have a lot more money, the passion of where they were racing and stuff just transcended in the late 70s, and it kind of flip-flopped. And, then the modified from up north started taking over. And so just listening to all the old stories, from all those guys, Jimmy Hensley would go up north a few times, and Billy Hensley and, Ed Barrier and some of those guys. But, the guy that kind of transcended to the south to the north was Ray Hendrick and Mr. Modified. And so, just listening to what was going on, you had to give these guys a platform, because you couldn't just let it stop, just because not only history, but, these tracks down here are made to race on. I mean, there's some great races, just like the one we added this, week with Wilkesboro. We're going to race there August 1st and 2nd, and just the history of that race in itself. I mean, after Richie and Bodine got together at Martinsville in '82, when they got up on the wall, a lot of people don't know that the very next weekend they went to Wilkesboro, had a 150 lapper, and Richie led 149 of it and blew on the last lap with the same car and the same engine that he had raced the week before at Martinsville. And so, the history is, one thing that I've always gravitated to, but also the drivers, because, the northern guys, when in Martinsville, when they were coming down, and, Ruggiero and Cook and Zombeck and Evans and DeSaro and just on and on and on, and Tomeno, and all those guys.
We've had him on the show.
Oh, which, dude, I've spent a lot of time with Tomeno and love him. He races in our series too, and I'll be honest with you, one of our races this year, I thought he was going to win the race. Yeah. Which I think he still has the drive to do it. But things change as you get older and stuff of that nature. You look at things totally different. You know what I'm saying?
But he is the Iron Man.
He is the Iron Man. I love him.
He was a manager for a wrestler too, so he was a wrestling fan.
That's right.
Yeah. I'll be glad to talk.
Bam Bam Bigelow's buddy.
We will seriously have a conversation about
that. I do remember something like that years ago. Yes. Yeah, he was something like that with the racing.
He had a wrestler pick him up over their head and threw him out of the ring, and he blew out his knees. Jamie. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's another story we gotta have him back on.
Absolutely. See, there's wrestling and racing again.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
So for you guys though, what is the goal for you guys? Is it to build this to have national television coverage? Is it live television coverage? Where do you want to go with the Smart Modified Tour?
Well, look, I mean, wherever it takes us. I mean, we're not out there looking for the TV deal, which, it always comes into play in the conversation. Whatever the platform will present in credibility as well as stability in the South, you can't have it without partnerships with the track, the teams, as sponsors is the biggest part of it. We have probably the best sponsor right now at Pacemaker. Those guys that come on board and they're their best right now, what they're trying to get accomplished.
And what is Pacemaker? What do they do?
So it's a gaming, skills gaming company. Kind of got introduced from Hermie and Senator Stanley. They were fighting a little bit of opportunity in Virginia. They were trying to protect the small business. This is what I am. And so they were fighting a legal case there. Some big casinos and stuff had come in, is trying to shut all the skills gaming down. And we had a long conversation with them. We had a race at Motor Mile. They came in, and we had to ride a long car, and we basically just pulled out the carpet for them and just let them know what we're about, which is we're racing and we love to race, and we have grassroots people that they're trying to partner with small businesses, because a lot of these teams are owned by small businesses, and that's what keeps them running.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, introduction and branding and business and stuff of that nature, they said, if we can get a continuous on this case, we'd like to be a part of it, which they did. And so we reap the benefits from the sponsors such as Mike Pace and those guys, and Gina. And I'm telling you, they're a great partner to have, and you cannot do it without the partners. And that's what we're trying to do, is build those grassroots businesses for sustainability for our series to continue to race. We're never going to race more than 13 or 14 times a year, because we're not going to compete against Bowman Gray.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Like, you guys try to work your schedule around Bowman Gray too. How first off, how do you do it? And number two is, you have an understanding with the competitors there, and as well as the ones that race on the Smart Tour.
Yeah, absolutely. We told Gray, that we wouldn't. Our plan was not to do it. It's kind of.
They didn't want you to do it. They didn't want you to start a tour.
They didn't say no. They didn't say not to. Okay. We just wanted them to assure them that they're the benchmark of everybody down south and actually across the country of a Saturday night showcase, right? They're doing it better than anybody else, right?
They are, as far as the Saturday night short track goes, that has the energy and the electricity and the stuff that I remember from going to Islip Speedway as a kid, because that's how I know the Dillmer family from sitting in the grandstands together from Islip Speedway.
Yeah, and we didn't ask permission. We just
a respect thing.
Yeah, we just wanted to show them that we had respect, and we wouldn't run on the Saturdays that they were at. We just did not want to do that and
take his job away.
Yeah.
Plus, I worked there.
Yeah,
well, and that is the wrestling of racing too. So there, that is again.
I got
that atmosphere.
You got to give it to him on that one. It gets pretty wild at the stadium.
There's a connection.
And then for you, being as young as you are, being the assistant starter there. I mean, just being in that position at that historic of a track. I mean, what is that like for you?
So,
because that is one of the birthing tracks of NASCAR. Bill France Sr. did promote some a little bit there in the early years.
Not only that, someone else that he thinks dearly of that I always looked up to was Richard Childress, that got his start. That's how that started. A lot of things started there. A lot of things, a lot of careers and stuff. It hasn't really.
A lot of fights started there.
A lot of fights. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. Wrestling and racing. But anyway,
go ahead.
It has not really.
One's real.
Oh, you gonna bring up that word?
Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
You're gonna bring up the wrong F word. So anyway, it has not really hit me yet on. It's just we're so close. This Southern Modified group, we're a dysfunctional family, but we're tight. It's just another day.
Show me a functional family. Really,
trust
right?
me. I know.
Yeah,
but it's just another day. I was just brought into it that way. It has not hit me yet. It will. Me and Randy Smith has been doing it forever now. I actually was. There for a couple of years. I did not do it and was with a team at Bowman Gray.
So wait, going back though, were you that young kid that stood behind the starter with your own flags at the track? Okay, so that was you.
That was me. I did that at Orange County Speedway, and then my dad was a superintendent at Orange County. There was a couple officials were out at the time. The flagman Joe George had to go down and be an official over the limited. They're like, "Who we're going to get the flag?" Joe knew of me. Joe said, "Put the kid up there," and the rest is history.
How old were you at the time?
I was 15. I was the youngest in Orange County. Yeah, 15 years old. It was.
You know what though? I got to give it to some of those kids because you watch them behind the starter sometimes, and they've got the caution out before the starter does. You know,
and they're better than the flagman that's doing it.
They're watching. I got it. Well, I'm sure you're inspiring some younger other flagmen behind you, right?
My favorite thing that I was doing there for a little bit, I would give my set of flags to the kid and get some made. Kevin Moss used to make mine. It was the Bush Series flagman.
Okay.
But as far as Bowman Gray, it's just another day in the office. It will hit me. It'll hit me probably later on when I'm going to have to walk away from it or something, you know.
Right.
But it's a true honor to be there.
Yeah.
In that position, it is.
You know, I've been hearing the term a lot lately of "don't blink."
Yeah.
I mean, you know, because
ain't that the truth?
I'm telling you, it really is because for me personally, I turned around 15 years on air, and it's like.
Yeah,
you know, where'd all those races go?
Reality hit just this past Saturday. Little Riley Neal, Kevin Neal's son. Kevin Neal and Tommy Neal is sportsman stars at Bowman Gray, and little Riley comes up and gets put in a sportsman and wins his race the other night. I used to pick him up and take him to Kevin Neal after he won a race at A Speedway when I worked there as a flagman. Used to pick him up and give him to Kevin in Victory Lane.
Oh, I
he's
know.
winning a race. Now that hit me.
Right.
I'm like you said, don't blink.
Right. I remember Justin Bonsignore when he was as tall as my knee. I would go over to his father's go-kart shop to pick up parts I needed when I was go-kart racing, and Justin was just little kid. So
I'm telling you, dude, it's crazy.
Dude, it makes me feel so old because I look down the roster sometimes when I race, and I'm like, I'm the oldest guy in the field.
Yeah. And we've known each other for years. I've watched you get gray hair. You've watched me get gray hair and lose hair.
Even more.
I've lost more hair but
you're gonna lose a lot.
Sure, it wasn't from getting dropped on your head.
Maybe. Don't ask him that. Maybe.
Oh, he's brain dead.
You gotta have a brain first.
So obviously you've got this whole season ahead of you this year. What are some of the tracks that you're going to? What are some of the tracks you hope to go to?
My favorite is coming up, Orange County. That's where it all started for me. That's coming up September.
Yeah, I like Orange County. I really wanted to race there. I remember when the tour come down, they would race either before or after Martinsville in the 80s. And I remember going to that race and watching that event, and I really liked the modifieds there, so it was great that we opened up that opportunity for that track. So it's new on our circuit. Of course, Wilkesboro will be new. We're going to run twin 50s there. That's going to be extremely fun. We ran Dominion for the first time last year. That's really super fast.
It's a gorgeous racetrack.
Yeah. Great facility. Mm-hmm. Great people that's working it.
Yeah, Stephen M's unbelievable. I love working with those guys. Of course, Motor Mile, we got the back half of the season. Carteret, which is super cool racetrack.
Yeah. Chris, after doing this for all of these years and then, going to work with the short tracks, what are some of the things like you're trying to get them to understand or to take the next step in or like maybe be the future of? Because you've worked in so many different facets of this, especially in like the fandom part of it where your job is to get asses in seats.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit challenging right now just because, with the tire shortages, you can't have practice sessions. You can't do some of the things to have a multiple day event. That would be fun to do, even though a lot of our competitors want to come in and come out. It'd be cool to have one or two events that would have multiple days, maybe heat races if we get the car counts to where it needs to be. I have some ideas for that. The tracks are very open and to bringing the fans in and doing some really cool stuff. But right now, the tire shortages is kind of limiting us a little bit, just because we've got a 5-tire rule. We've only sold practice tires one time, just because we're trying to make sure we make it through the season. Hoosier's doing a great job. of doing that. But we've got some really cool ideas. We've talked about doing some wrestling. We've talked about doing a concert. We've had some fans that have offered up some opportunities to do some things with the bull riding and a few other things that we could do just to generate a weekend. Because one of the things that when you go up north, Stafford being a little different, Thompson being a little different, people love to camp. People love to do multiple days. It's more expensive, and it's more expensive for the teams. And the one thing that I've been trying to do for the first year and a half is just to keep the cost down as much as I can. Once that we get on our feet and our sponsors, like I said, we have the best sponsors, and with Citrus Safe and Jerry Hunt Super Center, and all of those guys, Autos by Nelson, and everybody is just huge fans, but they're all small businesses, and they want to see the same thing with us to grow. And so the tracks are very open to a lot of things that we're doing. What we're doing right now with some of our sponsors that we're bringing in is talking about hospitality and different other things. They want to bring in campers. They want to do some because with the book that I have, I have a lot of big companies that want to be a part of it, but they also want to showcase either their partners or some of the small businesses. And we've got to make sure the facilities are where they need to be. And I'm telling you, there you can see it with Dominion and Motor Mile and some of these others. Carteret, they have those opportunities, but there's some that are historic events down here that we've got to uptick. So there's two things that's happening in that world. One, the Moonshine Tour or whatever that the state has done to promote North Carolina. Senator Stanley and the folks on the Senate in Virginia got, the Heritage Trail approved. And so, we're trying to give back Senator, the state, of helping these small racetracks put in certain subtle things, like fixing up that suite or hospitality area or bathrooms or whatever, so we can house some of that, so we can bring in some bigger sponsors and some bigger events to those things. And I have a huge vision. I just can't run through it yet because there's just certain parts of it that you can't promote yet until you put the pieces together.
What about the drivers, though? Obviously, you have a huge experience in the areas of doing driver souvenirs, drivers, products and things that they market. They are the characters of your show.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you guys are maybe doing for like the drivers? Do you guys are trying to get their souvenirs sales up, or their stuff for them to sell at the track, that they could kind of market themselves better to become like these, for all intents and purposes,
we've got
short track, local heroes?
Absolutely. There are Smart Stars. We put that name on them, and we've got Ian Kyle with Visualized Media that does Smart Stars highlights.
Okay.
And we've got that's in production right now, actually. He's at a shop right now with a driver. And those get put out there, and we be sure that the sponsors are mentioned and everything like that. And we're actually talking about doing something with sponsors and kind of the goofy videos that me and him do occasionally with Ian. We want to do something that's a little bit more serious with sponsors and get their names out there, do a little skit or something that's in the works.
So, one of the things that we do is we have an autograph session at every one of our events, which we give the teams an opportunity to sell their T-shirts and stuff. And see, the one thing that I'm trying to do to give that platform is not take advantage of them, right? Because most people, most individuals want a cut of the sales and everything else. And to be perfectly honest with you, once you build a $10 or $11 T-shirt, or once you bring it to the racetrack and once you try to set it up, and give somebody a certain percentage of it, it kind of gets muddy a little bit. And so we talked about it when I first done it, to get a trailer and bring it out there and present it. But I think right now most of the teams have vested into themselves, and I want to give them the light to shine. I don't want to take advantage. It's their mark, and I don't want to take advantage of it. There may be something down the road as we continue to grow and get bigger. The one thing I say about the modifieds is different than any other full-bodied race car is we're different. We're different than every other race car that sits on a racetrack. Open wheels, low to the ground, 600 and some horsepower. As I said, some.
Right.
And
okay, just look fast sitting still. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the best comments I've seen was Andretti and Bobby Labonte talking when Bobby first got in it, and he said, the toes off or something like that, and he said, how do you know? He said, I can see the wheel. He can see the stuff working. And so, our cars are just uniquely different. They're not only from the fan, you can feel it.
Yes.
You can smell it.
Yeah.
And it's pure adrenaline, even from the fans to the driver. And it's just, ours, there's nobody else that can really say that in any others. And I'm not knocking any other tours.
I know you're preaching to the choir as far as modified stuff goes.
And so, and I love all the other tours. I mean, I talked to Jack and them McNeely yesterday, and maybe somewhere down the road we can do something together. But just the vision of that is you got to have a track that can opportunity to park that many cars in the infield when you got 30 or 40 late models or 30 or 40 modifieds. A lot of these short tracks around here can't do that, and so you've got to make sure that in your plan that you're doing it and presenting it where the fan comes. And one of the things that I learned as the years progress, people's attention span, if something's not going on, right, if it's boring or whatever, or the kids, the attention span's not going to last long, right?
Especially nowadays.
And if you don't have the internet, you don't have everything working, you don't have the scoreboard, you don't have other things that's going on, people tend to lose interest. And so there's a huge marketing plan for all that, but right now you got to have money to do it. And until you find those sponsors that's going to change the game. I mean, we already do things that a lot of people don't do. We do a ride along car each week. The people that have an opportunity, the driver that comes in, we let their sponsors get a few rides.
Those things cost money, to build a ride along race car. I mean, that's big money right there.
Yeah. And thank God for our partners and stuff. PSR updated our car and made it safety, and they done a superb job with it. And and that's the one thing is I utilize our opportunity in the sport with the people that's helping us get to that next level, and bring the people that's already invested in you. And so everything that I look at is just trying to add credibility to what we're doing. I mean, everything RE does our radios and stuff. I had a long conversation with Kevin Hughes yesterday, and that's one thing about me is I try to talk to each and every person, because we're not doing everything right, but I love to hear what everybody's feedback. And I said this earlier, that after the race when I'm directing, I make sure that I go in there and get everybody's feedback. Sometimes I don't say a word. I just want to hear what they have to say, and then I may call them on Sunday or Monday and say, hey, I heard you. This is my take. This is how we can improve this. This is how we can make it better. No different with, Flow TV, coming along and helping us, and, Racing America done a superb job. But, our whole deal was, we just wanted to reach out and, get more people interested in modified racing. It was all about the reach. It wasn't about the money and the different things. And both of them do a superb job. I mean, heck, they interact most of the time with each other. Yeah. And a lot of people don't, see that. And, it's not just a money grab, right? It's relationship building. And so that's what we try to do.
Well, we have we're getting close to wrapping it up. We're getting near the end of the show, but before we get going, do you guys have a plan in place for coming up with a big modified event once a year, an annual event? I mean, we have the North-South Shootout down here, which is great, and I love the North-South Shootout.
He said North-South Shootout.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're getting ready to announce, and whenever this comes out or whatever, Darren and I have got together, and I think we're going to help promote that and do that this year. Just to help it along. I mean, it's doing good,
right?
But you I'm in the middle, because I can hear what everybody's saying from up north. I can hear what everybody's down south,
right? And
I can really do something. And yes, there's been some sponsors that's that came to us and has had some really good suggestions about how to make it better. And I'm not taking anything away from Caraway or anybody else, but we have some vision. We've talked to Darren, we've talked to some other folks about it, how to make it better. It's good now for the South, but I think that we can take everything that's going on now and enhance it.
There were some great years with that race.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you were. I've been the announcer for every single one of them.
Yeah.
So from the get go, and I remember the super modified years, and the late model modified years, and then the SK mods. They come down. I mean, it was huge. And one of the things that people would always say that it reminded them of was Pocono weekend.
Yeah.
The Racy Champions
Yes.
weekend.
Satchwell won the last one, and just throwing that in there.
History buff.
So yeah,
We got it.
We have some stuff. It's probably just a tad early.
Yeah.
To talk about that, but
Okay.
I mean, we want to enhance the northern drivers and the southern drivers. I'm on this deal of checking off the bucket list, and where I worked in NASCAR so long, there was a few modified tracks I hadn't went to, and I went to Thompson, I went to Stafford. I think the only one left that I hadn't been to is
2 awesome modified tracks.
Yeah, Riverhead's the only one I hadn't hit. So I know it's coming up not long from now, but
You'll dig that. If you like Bowman Gray, you'll dig Riverhead.
And
Absolutely.
then I've tried to make Wall for the last 3 years, but rained one time, then they moved it one time, and so on. So I haven't got an opportunity to do that. But once I check those 2 off, then I've seen how everybody else does it, and just kind of get an understanding of what everybody's expecting and looking for, even though the track's unique to itself and it creates your own type of racing. But there is opportunity out there.
We hope the next time we have you guys on, you can give us a little bit more detail of the big event or the things that you want to do. We want to thank you guys for both coming on today. Good luck to both of you with the series. Good luck to you at the wrestling. Don't get hurt, okay? Take care of yourself.
I'm in there with good people.
Okay.
I think.
Chris Williams and JB Cole join us today on the Derek Pernesiglio Show. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and as always, we'll see you the next time. Bye.